the News Channel 5 network. This is OpenLine.
Hello everyone, welcome to OpenLine on Thursday night. I'm Ben Hall, very happy to be here. We are talking with an attorney tonight. This is a chance to get free legal advice. Basically, this is our show, Ask an Attorney. And we are very happy to have with us a medical malpractice attorney from Hendersonville, Clint Kelly. Clint, thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you, Ben.
And I want to get a sense, first of all, of course, encourage people to call in 737-plus, 737-7587, but get a sense of what is medical malpractice. When we talk about that, what are we talking about?
Now the legislature calls them healthcare liability actions, but the bottom line is it's a claim by a patient against a healthcare provider. Could be a physician, could be a nurse, could be a hospital, for negligent care that occurs in the hospital or in a doctor's office, a misdiagnosis, someone who's had negligent surgery, all kinds of different varieties, and it causes serious injuries. Those are really the only cases nowadays that we're taking are cases that involve serious or catastrophic injuries.
You're only taking those cases because I bet there's so many cases out there, right?
That's correct.
I mean, do you see a lot of things come through your door?
We see a lot of cases come through, and you have to deal with the realities of juries these days. Juries don't compensate patients unless there are severe injuries, and I think there are a lot of reasons for that, but primarily juries expect that if you're going to file a lawsuit against a doctor or hospital, who juries tend to favor in these cases, to even the playing field, they must believe that the injury is devastating enough to be in court. That's what I'm hearing when I pick juries. They expect the case to be serious enough to be in court, otherwise they don't believe that the case should be filed.
So all of us have been to a doctor. All of us maybe have had, difficult situations. What does rise to the level of something that they should see an attorney and consider an actual lawsuit? What are some of the things? You're saying it's serious, but what are some of the things that rise to that level?
Well, the first things, common sense dictates a lot of these. If a patient believes, or a patient's family member believes that something wrong has happened, and usually your gut sense on these things is correct, the first thing you can do is talk to your family physician and try to get some feel from your family physician, because a lot of them will talk, be very open about what has occurred. But barring that, the best thing to do is to call an attorney, a malpractice attorney, and simply ask for a consultation, because consultations are free. And if the injury, as I said, is severe, catastrophic, someone can't work anymore, someone loses an arm or a limb or needs lifetime medical expenses, set up a consultation, discuss with the lawyer. You got nothing to lose.
Does that happen a lot?
All
You're
the
talking
time.
about an injury, not on the job or something. You're talking about they went in for care, and then some of those things happen to them?
They do, and I'd say, Ben, 90% of the cases do not involve negligence. There's not what we call a breach of the standard of care, and that's just a fancy legal word for saying that the doctor or the nurse failed to comply with what they were supposed to do. Most cases are simply what we call bad outcomes. There are patients who had a bad outcome even though the care was acceptable under the circumstances, and so that constitutes about 90% of the cases that we consult on, and those cases are cases we don't take. We only take the cases in which there has been a departure or unacceptable care provided by a healthcare provider that causes serious injuries.
And I found it interesting you said one of the first people you could ask would be your primary care physician.
Correct.
Because I think there's some people who would think, well, a doctor's not going to say a bad thing about another doctor.
Most will not. That's true, for a variety of different reasons. But the family doctor is, I believe, much more open. I don't want to use the term honest, because doctors are honest most of the time, but they're much more liberal in how they discuss these things, because there is a relationship with the patient and a family doctor that's almost sacrosanct. And I feel like that is an avenue in which you can actually explain to the patient, look, this is what you've been through. And I've had many clients come to me at the direction of their family physician saying, you need to have this looked at. You need to get a consultation. I think that you may have gotten bad medical care.
And where are you seeing the most cases now? Would it be at nursing homes, or would it be at the hospital, or would it be in some other capacity? Where do you see what are your typical cases now?
Ben, they come from all walks. I mean, I can't really say one's more than the other. I don't get as many nursing home cases. It does involve medical malpractice or medical negligence, but it's a different kind of case. I'm usually getting cases in which a patient's been harmed either in the hospital, or they've been harmed during a surgical procedure, or they've been misdiagnosed somehow, either by, in some cases, by their primary care physician, but most of the time it involves a specialist who has not complied with the care that they're supposed to provide, and the patient gets harmed. So it could be either hospital or outpatient.
And what are you seeing with juries now? And we'll start taking calls here in a minute. We have a couple calls on the line. If you want to call in, there's the number 737+. Do you have a question, a story? What is your personal situation? You can call in and ask a question to Clint Kelly. But what about juries now? Are they willing to award large sums in some of these cases? Are they tough in Tennessee on these cases? How would you say, generally speaking, how willing are they to really look at medical malpractice?
Yes, they are tough, typically tough on patients. Yes, they will award compensation that's fair and reasonable, but it has to be the right case. That's very rare. Physicians and hospitals win 80% of all the medical malpractice cases that go to trial. So the odds, as you can see, are very much against the patient, which is another reason why we have to be careful to make sure we take the right case, the kind of case that a jury will compensate a patient, the kind of case where a jury will believe in the case. There is a popular notion out there that there are runaway verdicts and runaway juries. That is not the case in Tennessee. Has not been the case in Tennessee. For as long as I've been practicing, over 20 years, juries in Tennessee are always conservative. I believe in the jury system here, and I believe in the way that juries treat these cases. And it tells me that you just have to be, as a malpractice lawyer, have to be very careful about the kind of cases you take, so the jury doesn't feel like it's getting its time wasted.
All right, let's go to Vincent on line 2. Hello, Vincent.
Yes.
Hi, what's on your mind?
Hey, I went on disability about 4 years ago, and all of my kids received a derivative check because I'm on disability, and what they're doing is making me pay child support for one of my kids and also getting a derivative check. Is it possible for me to get this money back once I've been set a court date?
Okay.
My response is you're going to have to talk to a disability lawyer on that, and that's probably not going to be satisfactory for you, but that is a question that would be squarely within the confines of what a disability lawyer does every day, Social Security disability lawyer, and there are many, many of those lawyers who would be willing to consult on a question like that.
And malpractice, obviously different. Even though you're talking about injury and that kind of thing, it's a different game here.
Correct. Medical malpractice can cause disability, but it's not the other way around. So where I come in typically is where a patient has been severely or catastrophically injured and they become disabled. And they would be entitled not only to compensation within our system of our civil justice system in a medical malpractice case, but they would likewise be entitled to compensation through Social Security. The government will pay benefits if you're disabled within the meaning of what the Social Security Administration says. And some people also have disability policies, insurance policies provided by their employer, and that's also another avenue by which to get compensated. And if it's an injury that occurs at work and in the course and scope of employment, they can also get workers' compensation.
So Vincent, thank you for calling in, but a disability lawyer. Now, as far as what you're talking about with medical malpractice, when we're looking at these types of cases again, and you're looking at the doctors, I guess, that are involved, are you focusing on individual doctors? And is it a case of negligence usually, or is it poor training, or, I mean, some of these catastrophic injuries you're talking about, I just wonder how does it get to that point?
The number one reason why these cases occur, in my experience, and I've heard this also from other attorneys who practice in this area, lack of communication.
Lack of communication.
Correct. I mean, your typical doctor and nurse is highly trained, highly skilled, and in the right place at the right time. But for some reason that I still don't understand, to my satisfaction, there are a number of cases where one doesn't talk to the other, which is why I always advise my friends and my family members and my friends, if you're in a hospital, you make sure you have someone there to be your advocate and ask questions. I even see signs now in hospitals where they will specifically request the patient, please ask me questions about your care, because they're trying in the hospitals now in particular to promote communication to prevent errors such as giving the wrong medication or making sure that the patient's change in circumstances or condition is communicated to the physician. Because what we're having is many, many more nurses responsible for a lot more things than they used to be, even 10 years ago.
So you could have a situation, a case that you may see come across your desk and you may in fact be interested in, would be a case where the wrong kind of medicine is administered with horrible results.
Correct. Or there's been a misdiagnosis because information about that patient's condition, whether it's their vital signs, whether it's a change in a person's injury, whether there's an infection, has not been passed up the chain of command, if you will, to the decision makers. And so if you think of the body as a clock, if you will, or perhaps an injury being a ticking time bomb, if you don't get to it quick enough within the standard of care, a serious injury can occur. So I find lack of communication from the bottom up to be the primary reason why a lot of these cases occur.
Let's go to Dana on line 1. Hello, Dana.
Hi.
Hi, what's on your mind?
Yes, my question is, I have a close family friend who had an MRI and had severe complications from that. I don't really want to go into it. It's kind of a long story, but is that something that you've ever heard of? And if so, what would be the next thing for the friend to do?
Well, first of all, MRIs occur in radiology suites, and they're under the care of either a radiologist or a radiology tech. There are very specific guidelines for how an MRI is to be conducted. There are actually hospital guidelines for how they're to be conducted. Now, I don't know what the injury is in this case, but I can tell you that in a situation like this, the first thing you do if a person's injured is, again, try to talk to the primary care doctor and assess what the injury is. If your friend is injured badly, what I would suggest you do is, of course, have your friend, once your friend has reached a point where they've reached maximum medical improvement, to call an attorney and to set up a consultation. There's a couple of things you want to keep in mind. First of all, the statute of limitations is 1 year, meaning you must sue within 1 year from the date of the injury or you lose your claim. And it's either 1 year from the date of injury or 1 year from the date of discovery of injury. The second thing you want to do is make sure that when you have reached max medical improvement that you have all of your medical expenses itemized and also have some type of doctor's letter letting the lawyer know what your future prognosis is likely going to bring. Ben, I had a case against Vanderbilt about 15 years ago where a man went to a CT scan to scan his face. He had facial fractures. He was chemically paralyzed because he was agitated, and they do this routinely. I didn't know this before the case. Because they chemically paralyzed him, he had to have a tube put down his throat and into his lungs so a machine could breathe for him. Wow. And the machine had 2 gas containers of oxygen that would feed oxygen through the machine and into his lungs. For some reason that to this day we don't really understand, but the radiology tech and the nurse responsible for making sure the images were shot appropriately weren't looking at the television to see his face. There's a monitor where they can show his face. They did not fill the canisters all the way full, and he ran out of air. And he was turning blue. And as a result, he was turned into a vegetable. No,
that's horrible.
Yeah.
So something, and the caller, Dana, an MRI, and that's a CT scan, you wouldn't think that is it's not surgery.
Correct, and I don't know what the injury is in that particular case, but I'm just saying that it is particularly for high-risk patients. Monitoring a person, whether in the MRI or in the CT scan, can be extremely important, particularly if the patient cannot breathe for themselves or can't care for themselves.
Okay, we have to take a break. If you want to call in, there's the number, 737-plus, 737-7587. If you're on the line, hold on. If you want to call, there are lines open. We'll be back right after this.